This is a picture shown at the sentencing hearing for Brianna Warner, convicted by a jury late last month of the first-degree murder of 20-year-old J. Parker Ford, a rap artist known as Aveboy SK.
How you gonna do it?
Crudy, you don't know the sauce yet, alright? Been in jail for too long, I'll show you the...
You get very comfortable in this person's presence, and you kind of forget, like, oh, this person might be like a cold-blooded killer, right?
Warner was arrested nearly 4 months after the deadly shooting, after bragging to an undercover officer who was wearing a secret recording device that she shot Parker Ford once in the head.
To be honest, she was like stoic, completely stoic. She did not really show any emotion.
The Crown says Warner was heard in secret recordings telling her mother and a friend she knew only as TJ, who was in fact an undercover police officer, about the shooting.
Tell them. Free the guys, niggas don't even come and free the guys, gang.
The Crown said Warner also wrote a rap song called Brain Dead, which she bragged about to TJ, about the shooting of Parker Ford.
You know, there was one point where, you know, I locked eyes with her. It was like, don't me kind of look. Like, it was, you know what the word is? Intense.
We love hip-hop.
So we are back with an exclusive interview right here. This is all going back in connection with the Aveboy SK murder. RIP Aveboy SK, and condolences to his family. This case has been a very wild one with a lot of twists and turns, and there's been so much speculation over the years since his passing about who did it, and different questions as far as like his ops and different people who were claiming it. And it was just a crazy thing that's gone on in our Toronto music scene. Now, when we finally found out who the person who was accused was, it was a shock on the whole scene when we found out that it was his girlfriend, Brianna Warner, who was responsible for the murder. And I say now that without the allegedly involved, because she has been convicted. And I've had the pleasure to speak to somebody behind the scenes who I now will be bringing to the audience in front of the scenes, somebody who was on the jury for the Brianna Warner case. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome Michael Cammidge to the building. Welcome, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yo, listen, man, this has been a crazy case, and I really appreciate you, having this conversation with me here. But I want to be able to get a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into the full case and some of your experiences through it, as much as you're able to speak about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to know?
So let's start with you yourself, right? Are you born, raised over here in Toronto?
Born and raised, man, from Coxwell and Gerrard area,
Wow.
East End, yeah.
Yeah, and we got to communicate behind the scenes because we're fellow content creators. I don't want to put myself in the journalism bracket. However, I would consider you a journalist as well. So can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm more of a documentary filmmaker. So I'm a shooter director. I do a lot of shows for like Discovery, History Channel, what you call like docs. So like Ice Road Truckers. I did that show Heavy Rescue in Toronto that was popular for a minute, and
Wow.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. So the wild stuff.
Nice. So as far as, with you, you're living your regular life, you're making movies, you're doing your thing, and then all of a sudden you get picked to do jury duty. How does one get picked to do jury duty, and what form does it come in? Like, do you receive something in the mail? Do you see something? Do you get an email? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, actually, so I had been living in Los Angeles for about 6 years, and I moved back about a year ago exactly. And I about in January of last year, I got a letter in the mail saying you've been selected for jury duty in October, and I kind of just, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's far away. You put it in the back of your mind. And then this October, I was on Friday on a Friday, I was going through my mail, and I was like, oh my God, I got jury duty on Monday. So I didn't know what to expect, and I went down to the court on University, and yeah, you just hand in your slip. You're like, I'm here for jury duty. I don't really know what to do next. And they put you in a room with, there was like 125 people, and they kind of just they bring you into this huge courtroom, and they start selecting people. It just happened really quickly, and I was the third one selected. And you go in front of the judge and the defense and the crown, and they ask you a bunch of questions to see if you're suitable. And the judge said, yeah, you'll do. And yeah, and it just happened like that. And then they said, have you heard of this person or this case? And I hadn't. And they said, do you think you'd have any racial biases because the accused was black? And I said no. And they explained what the charges were, and how it would work. And yeah, your head's kind of spinning. Next thing you know, you're one of 14 people chosen for pretty the most serious of charges, right?
Wow. So going in, you don't even know, like while you're in the room with a whole bunch of people, okay, I'm selected for jury duty. You don't even have any idea of what kind of case it is, like whether it's a DUI or a first degree murder.
No idea, man. I had, yeah, no idea what it was or what it entailed. I mean, I only kind of, the only thing you can draw from is seeing it on TV shows, right? And it was
Right.
it was very similar to that. They just, they make you swear, or affirm. You swear on a Bible or a Quran, or you can just say I affirm if you're not religious. And
Mhm.
um yeah, and then the judge explains what the charges are. And so that first day there, it was just, after the judge said, okay, you'll do, or court guard, I'll call them security, they take you out and they bring you into a room. And I was the third one in there, and the other two people were in there. And then slowly that room filled up with 14 people, and we were kind of like, what's happening? And and we were like, did we get chosen for the jury? And they're like, yeah, you're on the jury now. And um that's how it started.
Why do I get like Survivor vibes from that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just looking around like, are we the 14 chosen? Like, what happens next? You know what I'm saying? Choose your adventure.
Yeah, totally. It was very, very, you're spinning because you have to be there early in the morning. You're there like at 7 in the morning. You're tired. You don't really know what to expect. I was just thinking, I heard that if you ignore your jury duty notices, that you could get in trouble for that. So I was just
Interesting.
doing it because I didn't want to get in trouble. And I didn't think there was any way I was going to get chosen, let alone for a high profile first degree murder trial that was, as intense as it ended up being.
Wow, man, that's really interesting, man. And we spoke a little bit about like the security protocol, and I saw your video as well. Your video is amazing that you just published it today while we're recording this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
Yeah. I did. I had a hard time kind of unpacking the whole experience, so I made a video to sort of, I guess, cathartically, therapeutically help me digest the whole thing. Rug that has since been replaced, right where Aveboy's body lay, blood soaking into the fibers. Video evidence later showed Brianna running from the building, fleeing through the back streets of the neighborhood. The jury listened to the Crown and defense argue the case for nearly 2 weeks because, as we'll get into it, it was quite the experience, and an emotional, upsetting one.
Yeah, I could imagine just from reading it from the outside, and you being somebody on the inside. And speaking of such, like the security protocol, like, because I know when I watch these cases on TV and stuff like that, they're like, you can't have any communication to the outside world, you can't check social media, all that type of stuff. Can you give me some of the protocol that they had for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first day you get selected for jury duty, and then you're literally brought into another courtroom, and the judge explains, who the accused is, what the charges are, and then gives you, like a stern warning, is like, you can when you go home to your when you go home tonight, you can't look at the news, you cannot search these names, you have to remain as unbiased as possible. And yeah, so that the trial was 2 weeks, but then after the trial ends, you start deliberating, and that's when they do what's called sequestering, and that's when I mean, your freedom is basically taken away. You're in a room all day deliberating, and then at night you're you're brought to a hotel, and there's a floor of the whole hotel that's like guarded by court security, and there's no TVs, no alarm clocks. They take your phone and they seal it away. You can't call anybody, can't watch
Wow.
TV. Yeah, that was during the World Series, right? So you're like, oh man, I can't even. Um, we had to ask the guards like, what's going on with the game.
Doesn't matter, the Jays lost anyway.
I know, dude. I know. Yeah, yeah. That's another story, but
So okay, so you're in there. You said that it's like one room. Like you guys don't have your own rooms in the hotel.
no, no, no. We do. We had
Okay,
there's an entire floor. So they bring you to this hotel. This is when we're deliberating. So this is at the end of the trial, but they
right.
they bring you to a hotel, and there's like an area that's kind of sectioned off where they just feed you, and then they bring you up to a floor, like they have an entire floor of rooms, so everybody gets their own room.
Hmm.
Luckily, yeah, but
Yeah.
there's the guards are out in the hall all night, like you can't go and talk to somebody else, you can't. And there's no TV, there's no alarm clock, there's no phone in your room, like you can't look at any media or anything, right? They want you completely focused on the deliberations.
So what are you doing for these? And the deliberation took about 2 weeks, right?
No, so the trial took about 2 weeks, and the deliberation took 3 days. And
Three
that's,
days.
10, 12-hour days. You go back to the court, and you're in a room in the courthouse with a round table, and they give you all the evidence and all the exhibits, and then that's where you're basically discussing what you think, right? And everybody has to agree on the final outcome.
And so we can get to the case itself because again,
Yeah.
a wild case right here. And I think it's something that's took a lot of people for a loop when we found out that it was a woman involved in the shooting. And not, because for me, from somebody who's in the hip hop scene, like we see this, right? So it's usually somebody from an opposing neighborhood or something like that. So then when we found out that it was the woman Brianna Warner, what was your first impression, like seeing this woman, this young girl, basically walk into the courtroom?
Yeah, I mean, well, she was in custody, so she's always there when
Right.
you come in, right? And um yeah, I mean, it was shocking, right? Like you don't really know what to think. You're like, wait, a woman is charged with first-degree murder, and she was so young, and she's a good-looking girl, and um you have a hard time digesting that, like, what, this person is accused of this, like, really serious thing. And yeah, like, you truthfully go in and you just have no idea if this person did this, or if they were set up, or what it is, right? Like, you
Mm.
absolutely have no idea. And it's drilled into your head that you have to assume that this person is innocent until they prove her guilty. Like the judge reminds you of that all the time. Like she has the benefit of doubt that she is innocent. And so you assume that, right? Until the evidence starts coming out and the crown presents their case. And then you're like, oh, whoa, okay. And
Yeah.
the reason, yeah, and yeah.
And you know, as far as for us, you know, we call them Aveboy SK but for the young gentlemen, you know, what did you learn or how like from like how did they start teaching the courthouse, the courtroom, I mean, about this, not just the jury, but about this gentleman? Like, how did they start breaking it down? Did they start from his life, or did they start from the rap career right away?
Yeah, so I didn't even realize it was that he was a rapper, first of all,
Hmm.
and that it sort of came out as the trial went on, like, oh wow, this is actually about the Toronto hip hop community in a sense.
Yeah,
That ended up playing a big part of it, because like again, like I'm a 45-year-old white dude, like I don't know what's happening in the Toronto hip hop scene right now, so which kind of made me a perfect juror, right?
yeah.
But
So, and not to interrupt you, you're just hearing, okay, this guy J. Parker Ford, like, what did he do? You know what I'm saying? Then
yeah,
they
well,
brought you to the rap part.
they it that didn't come out until it was. So how it starts is the defense gives, or sorry, the crown attorney outlines the case. They're like, Brianna Warner did this. This is how she did it. This is the evidence we're going to show you. Um, and ultimately you have to find her guilty because the evidence will show. And that evidence was, it's all been made public, so I can speak on it. But it was, they had communication between her phone and his phone, through, they were messaging, for days leading up to the murder. And then there was no physical evidence, um, but there was some video evidence. But then the big thing was the undercover,
Mm,
which we can definitely talk about. Um, but to back up and talk about how he was that he was this rapper, and it sounded like he was going places. And his brother had they sort of start at the beginning. They showed us video evidence of Brianna going to the building, and then allegedly leaving the building
mm-hmm,
when in the early hours of the morning. And then they talked to Jay Parker's brother, who he was in the house when he was shot. And he's the one who called 911 and went into the hall and found his brother, lying there.
yeah,
And so they're, the crown is asking him the details, and the brother's telling us, what he saw and how he called 911. And then the defense comes in and cross examines the brother, and that's when they started talking about him being a rapper. They were like, oh, he's a rapper, right? And he's like, yeah. The brother's like, yeah. And um so he puts on a persona, and then it got into all that like rap persona stuff, right? Like
mm,
how what an op is, and how gain street cred and put on this sort of act to try to make yourself seem more dangerous, than you are. It's like it's about clout, right? And so the defense was trying to say that, hey, Jay Parker did that, and he had multiple enemies, so there could have been anybody who did this, right? Like it.
yeah.
um but ultimately, the defense proved that it was her. But yeah, we can get to that.
So Wow, that's crazy, man. You know, there was something that I saw from your video also, and I'll do a cut in here. Um, but you mentioned that she said that she was abused by Jay Parker at some point in time.
EJ visited Brianna at her house while wearing a wire, inquiring about the comments Brianna made the day earlier in the car. Brianna confessed that it was her who shot Aveboy, providing details on the shooting, and had even written a rap about it titled Brain Dead. Although not used by the prosecution, Brianna mentioned a motive that when she was 12 and Jay Parker was 14, he had taken advantage of her sexually. Yeah, and just to note, that was never used as a motive by the Crown Attorney. So like the
Okay.
government never said, because that was important, right? Like I was thinking that a lot too. It's like, why did she do this? Like you
Yes.
know, like why, where is the, you know, in their communication leading up to the murder, there was no sort of indication that there was hostilities, right?
Mhm.
Not that she's going to say, hey, I'm coming over to kill you now, like, um but she, so in the recording, the undercover you know, had Brianna became a suspect a couple weeks after the murder, and there, because there was no physical evidence, the police had to send in an undercover to try to get more information. And so they sent in this undercover who befriended Brianna over the course of a few months. They built a friendship, and then she started recording. You know, they got a judge's permission to start secretly recording their conversations. And in one of the recordings, Brianna um y- she talked about when she said that when they were younger, the undercover's like, oh, how do you know this guy? And she's like, well, you know, I slept with him when I was 12 and he was 14. And the undercover's like, whoa, really? And Brianna said, yeah, but it wasn't like that, like he took advantage of me. and and that was shocking, right? And honestly, like, I have to admit, it did give me sympathy for her.
Mhm.
You know, even like, not to, they were both kids compared to me, right? Like
Right.
her and Jay Parker were both kids. We're all, you know, we don't know what we're doing when we're younger, but like even the way he was texting with her that night, it was like, there wasn't, it wasn't like he was being disrespectful, but like he was also communicating with other, he had a line of chicks going on, right? Like,
Right.
and it was just like going to be a sneaky linker that evening, you know, he's trying to like, oh, come, we'll hook up in the stairwell kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like, it's like, yo, dude, man, you're not even showing this girl any respect. And um so I think she kind of used that to like, you know, now, can I clearly say that was her motive? I can't. I have no business saying that, but yeah, she did mention that. It was authentic what she said, and it was real. Like, I believe it 100%. It was during her like confession to the undercover, so it was, yeah, he, that happened. That happened.
Wow, man. And what about her demeanor throughout the whole course of the trial? Like you know, you're seeing her day after day. Is she stoic? Is she emotional? Like, what's her demeanor throughout the trial?
Yeah, that's a great question. And um to be honest, she was like stoic, completely stoic. She did not really show any emotion.
Mm,
Um, she, you know, there was one point where, you know, I locked eyes with her because you get used to it. You're like in a room with her for 10 hours a day, right? Like,
right.
you get very comfortable in this person's presence, and you kind of forget, like, oh, this person might be like a cold-blooded killer, right?
Hmm.
But there was one moment where I do remember, like, she looked over and we locked eyes, and I was, I was like looking into her eyes, and she was looking right into my eyes, and it was like unsettling. Like there was something just, I'd be presumptuous to say like she looked like a killer or whatever, but there was like something a bit frightening about her. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I was kind of like, I'm not gonna look away. And then she was just not looking away. And then finally I just kind of looked away.
Yikes.
And then, her lawyer like said something to her after. It was like, don't, you can't show any emotion. You don't want to kind of like give a bad impression of yourself. So other than that little moment, there was one point she rolled her eyes, but otherwise, man, she didn't say anything. She just sat there and was like, yeah, it was like out of body for her, I think.
Wow. Wow. I need to stay on that just for a quick second. Like when you guys locked eyes, right? There's different facial expressions that somebody might have. They might have that a somber facial expression, like "Why am I here?" Or they might have that facial expression, like "I'm looking at you, man."
That was the one.
That was the one,
That
eh?
that was the one, man. Yeah, it was
Woo.
it was like don't fuck with me kind of look. Like
Mm.
you know what the word is? Intense. It was
Intense.
intense. But again, like when you're in that position in the court, the I won't be able to say it like word for word, but one of the first things the judge said, which really stuck to me, he was like, in my 40 years of being in the court system, the most important thing I've learned is that because s- just because something seems like it might be so doesn't mean it is. So we had to kind of carry that with us, right? Like, and so if I was assuming, for example, her looking at me intensely like that, I interpret that as a look of intimidation. But you can't, I kept thinking of what the judge said, which was, you might think it's that, but that's not what it is. Like she could have
Hmm.
been medicated, right? Like she could have been, like that's a traumatic thing for somebody that young to go through, right? Like you don't know if she's on Xanax or something, like just to function. So I can't say for sure, but that definitely did look like yeah, she looked intense.
Yeah. Intense. That's intense.
Intense, man, intense.
Um, what about the families? I'll ask this in two parts, like Brianna Warner's family and Jay Parker Ford's family. Like, how was their demeanor throughout the trial? Like you mentioned, the brother who was on the stand for part of it, but like, how are they through the whole trial?
Yeah, and I know, like, I, n- n- I know a lot of the other jurors didn't never, because you're kind of you're at the front in a box next to the witness stand, and so you're kind of always looking to the right the whole day, right? Like
Mhm.
so that to the judge and to the witness stand is where you're looking most of the time, and then to look left is to look to the public gallery, and that's where the families are. And I know a lot of people didn't on the jury didn't want to look at the families because it is upsetting, right? um but made sure to always look at the families. Like I always looked at Brianna's mom, and I looked at Jay Parker's side, and they were on different sides. And honestly, Brianna didn't have anybody there the entire time. Not one
Wow.
other person besides her mom. Her mom was the only person, and Jay Parker, his mom was consistently there, and there was a couple guys that were consistently there. I don't know if they were family members or friends, like you don't speak to them, but Jay Parker seemed to have like a consistent group of people coming to watch the trial.
A support system. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, man. And even with the trial itself, right? They started to open it up really, like when they started really presenting evidence to the public, right? From what I seen from the outside view, it was the undercover, and if I could just see if the pull up the name, TJ is the
EJ.
only thing that they were able to give the public, and I'm sure also with the jury, that's the only thing they were able to give you guys also. Before I get into the evidence that TJ was able to present, can you give me a description of the courtroom? Because I know that even you guys as the jurors weren't able to see who this undercover was.
No, actually, we did see who she was.
Oh.
Yeah. So how that works is because that was sort of the big evidence for the crown. And that came in, I think it might have been at the beginning of the second week, but they say, okay, we're gonna bring in this undercover, and they bring out, it takes like a while for them to do it. Like they bring her in through some secret access, the back of the court. I don't know how, but we had to leave the room. We're held in another room, and then they put up a divider that that it basically just blocks, like it's a big boarded folding system that blocks the public and the media from being able to see who the undercover was. And then they
Mhm.
bring us back in, and the undercover sitting in the witness box, and so Brianna can see the undercover, and the undercover just basically just addresses us, and the crown, and then the defense. We were there with her for a few hours, I guess, and she just tells us the story, right?
Wow. So without obviously revealing who the undercover is, because I would imagine that's against TPS policies and stuff like that. Um, what was the first impressions when you see this woman come into and I'm sure they picked somebody who's relatively young, but when you see this person come into the courtroom, you're like, holy shit.
You know what I was thinking? I was just thinking, like, man, Brianna, like, I wonder what their dynamic is going to be like, right? Because Brianna thought this was her friend, essentially, right?
Mm,
Like, and really trusted her and wanted her to like her. And, meanwhile, the woman is recording her, is trying to get the evidence that the Toronto Police Service needs. Um, but yeah, so I mean, yeah, they don't even tell us her name. It's TJ. That was
right.
it. Yeah, so that they and then the crown just says, tell us what happened, what you heard, and how you became friends, and then the defense comes in and tries to, do their thing to the undercover, right? Like to poke holes in the story or whatever, or, hurt her credibility, do whatever they did. And yeah, that was that. I'm trying not to say too much because I don't want to end up in trouble, but
No, for sure, for sure.
yeah.
So, as far as what can be said, what was, and because a lot of this has already also come out into the public, what was
Mhm.
presented to the crown as far as like the relationship between Brianna and TJ, because like they said it was established within weeks.
Yeah, that's not correct. It was actually established. So, the timeline was, it was December 16th. Brianna at 4:45 a.m. shot Jay Parker, and he died 2 days later in hospital, but they were treating it like a homicide pretty much right from the time the police arrived.
Mhm.
So they did, a forensic analysis of the scene, and they didn't find anything. um Brandon, like, knew what she was doing, right? Like it was planned out. Even on the security footage, like you don't see her very clearly. And so I think that the police knew that this wasn't just a run of the mill, like, oh, we got some fingerprints, we got a bullet. It wasn't that. So they did, you know, a subpoena on like with Bell on Jay Parker's phone records.
Mhm.
And then they were like, oh, this account on Snapchat was messaging uh Jay Parker at this time. And the name on that Snapchat was like Bree23X. And that's all they knew, right? There was no
Mhm.
Brianna Warner, no nothing. So then they they s- they contact Snapchat, and then they subpoena Snapchat's records. And they found an IP address, like the Wi-Fi that was used. and
Wow.
and and yeah, and so they were like, oh, okay, there's, there was, because there was a few people messaging him around that time, right? But like her messages, like they stopped at like 3:38, he's dead at 4:45, and then she doesn't message him again, right? So they're like, okay, this is a person of interest.
Right.
And so then they find out the IP address, they know where the house is, they find out, I don't know if they did surveillance or whatever, but they must have, right? Like I'm
And
assuming here.
and this is like in how much? Because that sounds like a lot of steps. They did this in how much time?
Well, the investigation was over months. So
No,
Brianna
but
became
for
a
them to be able to say, with the Snapchat records and everything you just explained, how much of a time span was that? That they explain in the
uh,
courtroom?
dude, like they hit the ground running, man. They took it really serious.
Mhm.
That 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 happened right away, I think. Like I would say
Wow.
within 10 days they had all that information. And Snapchat's a US company, right? Like you know, they've got to get a warrant to do that, and Snapchat has to cooperate, because they could say, like, Apple doesn't cooperate in those kind of things, right?
Mhm.
Like, so but Snapchat did. And then of course Bell did as well. And then so then I guess I'm assuming here they start watching Brianna, and they're like, okay, this is a person of interest. And then from my understanding, Brianna sold stuff online. Like, I guess she like had an online shop or something, and that's how that's how it happened, right? Like somebody messages her, hey, and they start chatting, and then they become friendly, and then they exchange social media accounts, and then like, but the undercover was working her for months. Um, but then they didn't really meet in person until, it was like April or something like that.
Oh, so the undercover was basically one of her customers that she had online.
From yes, yeah,
Brilliant.
that was I mean, it was smart, right? And it's like, because I think the media got that wrong, because they were like, she just met her one day and she's telling this story. It's like, no, they, like, the undercover was saying that, oh, she just broke up with her ex and she was having guy troubles, right? Like, it was all like,
Methodical.
yeah, yeah, to like, to gain Brianna's trust. And so Brianna's like, oh, well, I also have an issue with a guy, and that's how they kind of bonded, right?
Mm.
And then eventually they met in person. And I don't know if it was the first time they met, but it was the first time she was recording her. She picked her mom up, or sorry, Brianna was with her mom somewhere, and the undercover picked them up and was like, oh, do you want to ride? And they got in the car, and the undercover's driving them, and was recording her. And Brianna and her mom got in an argument. And during that argument, and we heard this, during
Mhm.
that argument, Brianna's like, telling her mom to shut up. She's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. And the mom's trying to explain herself. And Brianna's like, remember when you asked me about who shot that guy in the head? It was me. So I have anger issues. So don't fuck with me. And that was the first time they got that. And that was being recorded, right?
Wow. So they're playing that recording in the courtroom?
Yeah, yeah, that's public record. They played that in the courtroom. And then the next day, so then, the police were like, okay, we know this is essentially the person, right? So the next day, I don't know how it happened, but the undercover TJ was hanging out with Brianna at her house and was recording it, and then was like, the undercover's like, hey, I wanted to ask you something. Like, you said some crazy thing in the car yesterday. Like, what was that about? And Brandon's like, oh, yeah, I had to get my mom to shut up. And, I just, I don't want her disrespecting me. And and then, the undercover kind of like asked some more questions. And Brianna then told the story. But
Hmm.
that was really when I was like, oh shit, this is hip hop plays a big tie into all this, because the recording was pretty extensive. The conversation was long, and as Brianna was telling her what she did, she provided details. And then the undercover's like, oh, do you have a photo of this guy? Like, what does he look like? And she's like, oh yeah, he's a rapper, let me show you his music video.
Music
she
videos.
played she played that music video that Jay Parker did with DQ, who I didn't even realize was also a victim of murder.
Yeah.
um and Brianna mentioned that in the recording. And that's when she said something. Brianna was like, Brianna knew which was eerie, she knew the lyrics to the song word for word, and she was singing along to it. And then I guess there's a part in the song where, I don't know if it's Jay Parker or DQ, said they said something about like committing a violent act on some op.
Came to boom, what the fuck would I miss? Better duck if my guys on your shit, cause if I line it up, then your heads get split. See a op, back the grip.
And Brianna's like, oh, that's not even true, that was another crew who did that, and they're trying to take credit for it. And I'm real, like, she was boasting that, like, they're not real, I'm real. And she's like, yeah, and I even wrote a rap about it myself. And she had
Mm.
written a rap about it. And the undercover's like, oh, can I see it? And Brianna's like, sure. And then she's reading it, and she's like, oh, you've got really nice handwriting. And Brianna's like, that was when the whole hip hop thing started to come into play, because Brianna's like, is she the rap to me was interpreted, the one that Brianna had written was like, because it was lyrically, it was terrible. Like, she didn't have any skill.
Yeah, I
but
seen it.
but it was, yeah, but it was like, she thought that by committing this violent act, that's what makes you a somebody in the Toronto rap scene. And she even confessed, she's like, yeah, I brought it to this other producer, and he had some suggestions on it, and I told him that this is based on something I really did, and he didn't want to hear it. And it's like, yo, you're telling, like, she was boasting about this, basically thinking that that's what, like, a producer's going to come up and go, oh, you are really a killer, here you go, here's a record deal, or let me make a record for you. And
Wow.
um yeah, man, it's really really sad, very sad.
Yeah, yeah. So, wow. So now they didn't even use the rap in that though, right? I seen from your YouTube video that they actually threw out the rap lyrics.
No, they used them.
Really?
That was an exhibit. Oh yeah, 100%, because that there was some key points in that, because she said, one of the things she mentioned that she was Killa B in the rap, and that was how they connected, like, one of her passwords to another account was Killa B. So
Oh.
because they had to prove to us, beyond reasonable doubt, like, this Snapchat account belonged to her, and that was the one messaging Jay Parker that night. And because she had, I'm assuming, deleted everything, right?
Mhm.
Um, so like, they really didn't have a lot to go with. So they had to, like, so at her house they found a diary, and in that diary there was a list of passwords that she had for, like, other email accounts and, you know, bank accounts or whatever, online access, and one of the passwords was Killa B or Killer Bree. And so,
Mm.
and then that was in the rap. So it's like, oh, okay, wait, this is her. Um, anyway, it was just another point to connect her to that Snapchat account.
Yeah, and it seems that like with all the pieces that they were putting together, you know, Snapchat was the joining or the glue that really brought everything together. If this happens and this happened and it connects back to the Snapchat, then we have the person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for yeah, definitely. But she was also, I mean, this just shows how like cold and malice the whole thing was. Like she thought it out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like she because like she wasn't texting him on her phone number, right? She was using a social media account, and she didn't have her name officially tied to that social media account, right? Like, so she was doing the right things to get away with the murder. It's just that she had by the time she confessed it to the undercover, she thought she had gotten away with it, or didn't
Wow.
value her life enough to think it. I don't know. To me, the whole thing was um a poor, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but there was definitely like this sickness that was prominent in that was in the Toronto rap community, because you know, after the trial was done, I did a lot of research to find out where the rap scene is right now, because
Mm.
you know, I grew up on hip hop, right? And you know, I grew up in the 90s, and we didn't have any big hip hop stars at that point, right? Like
Right.
not like we have today. And Toronto hip hop, you know, Maestro and Cardinal and Choclair and all these guys, they had to they weren't about street cred, right? They were about style and lyricism and mixing genres, and that was what made them stand out. But now it's like that doesn't matter. It's all about street cred. It's
Yep.
all about what I do and who I do it to. And that was really troubling to to see.
No, it's definitely a predominant part of the scene when it comes to, especially when the scene that gets the most attention on social media, right? One thing
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
one thing I've never been able to figure out, and you know, we've covered this case, me by myself, or
Mhm.
just sitting on the podcast with my co-host and discussing it, is motive. Were they able to establish motive in the courtroom as far as the crown or anything?
No, they didn't. Yeah, no, there was no clear motive given.
Mm.
And they didn't have to. You don't know, you know, it's important to have it. And I think they kind of let us as the jury decide that, and that was, it's because you think of that, right? You're like, well, why did she do that? But
Why?
it was when she said he took advantage of me when he was 14 and I was 12. That was to me like, okay, that seemed like her part of her motive, that and wanting to be somebody.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. So now moving forward, we get to the deliberation, right? You guys deliberate for 3 days. I don't think we need to talk about the one juror that was kind of like undecided, basically. I think there was one person that was like, I don't know. They tried to say, oh, there was a compromise because they were from the same neighborhood.
The family of the victim let out a collective sigh of relief after hearing the word guilty. There was a lot of uncertainty about how this trial would end. Around 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, there was a note from the jury saying they were deadlocked. The judge told jurors to go back and try to come to a verdict one more time. Then, about 3 o'clock, the judge got another note from the jury, which read, Your Honor, we have made all progress possible but can't reach a unanimous verdict. During deliberations, a juror is a blocker in our decision. We found out he lives in the area. We believe there are personal matters / biases. We need your help in addressing this matter. And then, before the judge had formed an answer for the jury around 4 p.m., there was a verdict.
Yeah, that so just so you know, the judge like sternly warned us. He's like, it is a serious offense if you ever discuss what took place in this jury room, but I can discuss what the media got. So,
Mhm.
like, how it works is when if you have a question for the judge, you have to write a letter, and then he has to answer that letter in the courtroom. So they bring you out of this room, they bring you back into the courtroom, and then you're like, which is very shocking because you forget when you're in the deliberating room, you're there for so long, you think everybody's gone home, right?
Right.
But meanwhile, it's like everybody's waiting for you because you could have your decision at any moment, right? um so he has to answer you in front of the court, and so we address like, hey, there's this issue. And so he that letter becomes then public, right?
Mhm.
And so global news and I guess the Toronto Star picked that up. And but yeah, like I mean, I definitely can't say much about it, but that was said in global news, yes, that there was somebody who might have had a bias, but
Well, that was
obviously yeah.
resolved, and you guys came to a conclusion.
Mhm.
The judge deliberates the decision. What
No,
is
we give the decision. We
oh
say guilty or
you
not. We say guilty or not guilty. If we said not guilty, Brianna goes home that day, right? Like,
Mhm.
but like we said guilty, so we give an envelope to the judge, and yeah, and then we say in court, they say, we go back to court, everybody sits down, Brianna has to stand up and face us, and then the
Wow.
jury, they ask, what's your verdict, right?
And you guys have like one spokesperson that says it for you, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. You elect one person to be the one to say that.
Ooh. So now the the spokesperson is saying this.
Yeah.
You're seeing in real time Brianna Warner guilty of first degree murder. What's Brianna's expressions? What's her demeanor like?
Yeah, dude. This is one of those things that I will remember the rest of my life, like till my dying day. Um, because honestly, like once we had the guilty verdict, because there hit a point in the trial where I was like, once you hear, it was really for me, it was the undercover uh testimony and the recordings, right? I was like, yo, man, she did this. Like she friggin' confessed it. Like it's very authentic. And that was the moment for me where I was like, there's no question she did this. Um, and I wanted to like once she, we had a decision, we were walking back to the courtroom. I was kind of like, I want I wanted justice for Jay Parker at that point, right? Like, and I
Mhm.
was I was upset, and I was like, I want to look at her, and I want to see the look on her face when she knows that we found her guilty, and because you're upset. But honestly, as soon as I walked into that courtroom and saw her, man, that was very emotional for me. Even thinking about it now, because she's a kid, like she's 21 years old. She's a
Yeah.
little baby, right? And she's standing there, and it's like, before she does that, her life is
Mhm.
over. And so I promised myself, I was like, I'm gonna look right in her eyes, like because I had to make this decision. I got to be man enough to look at her, right? And so I just, she's looking at us, and they the individual we elected to say read the verdict, he says guilty. And her, she was a light skinned girl, like you see just red come up her neck and
Mm.
just like flood her face, um like terror. And that was the first time it was like it was real, and it was real for everybody in that moment. um And I think she kind of just froze in fear and was like, yeah. And then, after that moment, like, I gave her a couple seconds to look at her and just like take accountability for my decision, right? And then, look to Jay Parker's family, and they were very emotional, but relieved, right? And I remember I looked at his mom and like locked eyes with her and just kind of nodded, like, you can't speak to them, but I wanted her to know, like, I fought for your son, right? Like, I believe
Mhm.
you. Um, and there was a couple guys on his side that were like nodding, like, thank you. Um, but then, yeah, man, and then the judge is like, yo, your peers found you guilty. You're getting 25 years. Um, which is just unbelievable, right? Like horror, and like as angry as I am with what Brianna did, a part of me wanted to like just go and hug her and be like in a weird way, it's like I do care about her, right? Like I
Mhm.
don't know
Mhm.
why that is, but it's like she's a victim too, right? Like a victim of growing up in poverty and not having a father figure around and not having the guidance that she needed, right?
Mhm.
And that's and like that's victimization in its own way, right? Like it doesn't justify what she did. It's inexcusable, but you understand, right?
Yeah. No, man, that's heavy, man. How does one decompress after once you walk out the courtroom and you're like, all right, I just gave somebody life in prison?
Yeah, dude. That was horrible. Um I was gonna take the streetcar home and I couldn't even get the streetcar pulled up. So like they walk you out a back entrance
Mhm.
and the security watches you and makes sure that nobody's following you. um and you spill out into the street and yeah, man, I was upset, man. I was emotional. I didn't, like I said, I couldn't get on the streetcar. I walked. I just wanted to walk. I walked down to the lake. I walked along the lake for a couple hours.
Mm.
Um I was upset, man. I was teary-eyed at some point, and then I was also very thankful too, right? That I didn't land in that position, right? Because you never know where life takes you, what cards you're dealt to end up where you do, right? And
Mhm.
and any trouble you have in your own life, it's like it pales in comparison to, Jay Parker's gone, his family are wounded forever, and as is Brianna's mother, and Brianna's on the way to the pen now. Like and she's a baby. Like it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a question I forgot to ask earlier in regards to the trial because you mentioned Brianna's mother.
Mhm.
We were wondering on the podcast, how was she free? Because we figured like maybe she would be considered an accessory after the fact.
That's a good question.
And it's not like I want her to be locked up or anything but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she got a confession, and I understand that the undercover was in the car recording it, but like did she go and turn her into the police afterwards?
From what I remember, uh, it seemed like the mom kind of suspected something was up
Mm-hmm.
after Jay Parker was murdered because she asked Brianna, "Did you know what happened to that kid who got shot?" And Brianna told her no. That was initially, right? That was like
Mm-hmm.
in a day or two after. But Brianna said that thing to her mom in the car on the 6th. Then she said then the next day she made the longer confession, which was April 7th. Then Brianna was arrested on April 8th. So I think the police would say the mom didn't really have time to turn in the daughter or to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And at that point, it's like, I don't know if there's anything they can do. You know what I mean? It's like the mom could say, "Look, I don't know, right?" Like, yeah,
No,
I
that
don't know
makes
what to
sense.
say to that. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. What did you learn from this whole process throughout all of these weeks, and the, the the verdict that you explained right there? What did you learn from all of this?
I learned a bunch of things. First, I learned empathy for basically anybody accused of a crime, because I don't think you're born bad. I don't think that you want to hurt people. I think you've been hurt in some way, and
Hmm.
that also makes you a victim. But the one of the biggest things I learned, and it's something I potentially want to explore further with a documentary, or a series, but is the current state of hip hop in Toronto. Which is
Mm.
why, like, I know other journalists, and like they wanted me to talk about this, right? And I was like, I wanted to talk to you, because I feel like you're connected the best into this community right now. But I learned that Toronto's hip hop scene is in a bad state right now.
Hmm.
And if kids like her and Jay Parker, and I'm not trying to badmouth other people, but like, if you're rhyming, if you think that skill is contingent on violence, then you are really, really misguided. And 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 it was not real until Brianna heard that guilty come out of our mouth, that
Hmm.
she didn't know how serious it was until that moment. And yeah, man, that's what I learned, is Toronto's hip hop scene is in trouble right now. And whether you want to use what I'm about to say or not is up to you. But like, it, being in the industry, like, I've been at parties where Drake's around, and I always looked up to him, and I always was like, man, you didn't have to be hard. You didn't have to um claim you were from the street to
Hmm.
do what you did. And that always made me very proud, because Canada's biggest export is its friendliness, right?
Yeah.
And to be the biggest rapper in the world, and be still a friendly Canadian, was always there was always a sense of pride to that. But with what, him co-signing top five, and that guy going to Canada's Wonderland and a children's park, and like, thinking that that's okay to be calling violence. And like, it's like, yo, man, there's a serious problem if the Toronto hip hop community has taken this like jackknife 90-degree turn into, it doesn't matter about talent or what I'm saying. It's whose chain I stole, or who I shot, or who I have beef with. It's like,
Yeah, it's unfortunate because that our scene isn't only that. As somebody who works, I'm always interviewing artists on a regular basis, so I'm entrenched in the scene, and our scene isn't only that, but that's the stuff that gets the most traction. Like, I interview so many people that it might do a couple of hundred views, but if I do a news story on somebody that has some kind of criminal element, or they have some kind of criminal case, that does not even 3-4 times the views, like 10, maybe 20 times the views.
why is that? That's just insane. It's insane, man.
It's a combination of maybe the conspiracy of the algorithm, and just maybe just people's thirst for blood. One of the highest viewed things on when it comes to content is true crime, right? If not the highest,
This is true. This is true, man.
right?
100%. Yeah.
um I have a last question as far as this whole case, right?
Yeah, I'm just
From
gonna plug my phone in. Sorry, hold on, because it's.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'll answer any question you have.
Now, from seeing Brianna through this whole case, what do you think that she learned? If you could just get into her mind for a moment, because you've explained a few different times, right, where you guys locked eyes, her demeanor throughout the whole trial, and then her turning red with the verdict. What do you think that she learned? If you could just speculate, even.
I don't think Brianna has learned anything yet. I
Wow.
don't think that that comes until later. Um, I think that comes with maturity.
Mm.
And I think, after she's been in for 5 or 10 years, my hope is that she realizes her, where all this anger came from and why she did what she did. Um, and and learn something from that and tries to do better if she ever gets out, which I don't know if she ever will. But I don't think she's learned anything, man, to be honest. I can speculate that she's probably upset she got caught, and she probably blames the jury or her lawyers or the crown or anybody, her mom or anybody but herself. But I don't think she's learned anything yet, man.
Wow, man, that's sad, man. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you having this conversation with me here, man. Like, I think that for the people who've been wondering about this case, because it's been such a case with so many, mysteries in it, just to get some clarification, is just an honor, and just really appreciated, basically.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man, and everything you do. I'm glad that we connected.
No, thank you, man. Do you have anything as far as like, I suggest people go over to your YouTube channel. Let me see if I could just pull it up over here in the background. If you can plug your YouTube channel so people can go check out your video as well and any other content that you got coming out in the future.
Yeah, definitely. You can. Well, I mean, I have a small YouTube channel, just a couple videos. Framing Worlds, it's called.
Mhm.
Maybe you could provide the link. But there is a video I was hoping people would see about my experience with Brianna on there.
And I'll be incorporating it into this video as well, man. But I really appreciate you having this conversation with me, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you
Um,
too, man.
There you have it. Michael Cammidge in the building. Thank you for this conversation right here. I suggest everybody go and check out his YouTube channel to see his breakdown of how he felt after this trial right here. And RIP to J. Parker Ford, aka Aveboy SK, and condolences to his family. We are off of this. Deuces.
We love hip hop.